This is not a sermon about mothers. I mean, at least not until the end, and even then, not exactly. It is a sermon about finding God in the world, about how we human beings make what is vast and invisible and unknown, concrete, seen, and felt. I have some examples for that, which will involve women, and the women are not there by any accident or as a gratuity. They just fit this message because as a group, women, the ones who have born children or not, the ones still raising their own or mentoring anybody else in any way, the ones who gather and hold people together, the ones who actively care for the world by showing up for whomever is nearby. Well, those people reflect an essential piece of God. We start, however, not with the women, but with one lone man a really long time ago. It is Athens, Greece, and the year's about 50 AD. For context, Jesus died around 33 AD. The one who was born Saul, who first persecuted followers of Jesus, but then changed his ways, had a dramatic change of heart and mind to begin to proclaim Jesus, is now deep into his journeys to establish Jesus-following communities all around the known world. He's more than a decade into the work, and he is now known as the Apostle Paul for these communities. Paul is traveling, but without any of his usual companions right now. He's waiting on Silas and Timothy to join him as soon as possible because they've been delayed in another region. And while he waits, in Athens, Paul begins to preach and speak wherever he can. That starts in the local synagogue, but extends to the marketplace where anyone can hear him. Doing this lands him in a little bit of trouble, which he'll have to face down all alone at a location on a rocky hill, which is actually shown behind me there, at a location called the Areopagus, or Ares Rock, if you want to directly translate it. The English translation of Areopagus is how you might have also heard about this place as Mars Hill. It gets called all three things. The Areopagus is not the same place you should know as the Acropolis, which is like a more friendly spot. The Acropolis at the high point of the city has temples and shrines and is a place of commerce. The Areopagus is the home to the judicial council of the day. It's like the courtroom of early Athens, but it's very much law and order in this place. And Paul is called to this place to explain his recent public speaking, but also to account for it. He's gonna testify, but not like maybe what we mean in that way. Not with raised hands and hallelujahs, but he's gonna be called to testify with all the wits he can gather, all the wisdom he has, and all the spirit-led words he's got to keep his freedom in the face of a very serious allegation. He's been accused of spreading the worship of foreign gods. Some background for Athens under Roman occupation. A whole diversity of gods was allowed. They just all needed to be Roman ones. You could worship a different god from your neighbor. That's not the problem. In fact, a diversity of philosophies was allowed too, because Athenians loved nothing more than talking and debating philosophical constructs, studying the latest in logic or metaphysics or aesthetics. But every framework they had, all the references they made, needed to be Greek or Roman in origin. Lucky for Paul, he is both Jewish and a Roman citizen, so he kind of knows the ways of these people. He knows the intellectual players of the day. He can quote the source material for their philosophers and their poets. He has a foot in two worlds here, which is really going to help Paul. It's going to let him make the case for Jesus without ever using Jesus' name. Paul is about to proclaim what he most deeply believes using what the Athenians already believe. That's going to allow him to flat out disagree with these folks, to even believe that how they've set up religion is very, very wrong, and still begin and end in a place of agreement. Here's his argument, paraphrased before I read it. You Athenians have brought me here to account for spreading false worship of a foreign god. And that's just not how I see it. I don't think that's what I've done. I'm not trying to move you to follow my God over here. I'm simply pointing out what's already among you, what's already available to know where you already are. The God of which I speak, the God in whom I believe, is already here. You folks are so religious that you already have an altar for this same God I'm talking about. You call him an unknown God. That, in fact, is the altar to the unknown God in the city of Athens. I, says Paul, actually know this God. I can make him known to you. So just give me a few minutes and let me make your unknown God knowable. Here's the part of Acts 17 where Paul starts to offer up his best defense, read from the NRSV Bible. Then Paul stood in front of the Areopagus and said, Athenians, I see how extremely religious you are in every way. For as I went through the city and looked carefully at the objects of your worship, I found among them an altar with the inscription, to an unknown God. What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, he who is Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by human hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mortals life and breath and all things. From one ancestor, he made all peoples to inhabit the whole earth, and he allotted the times of their existence and the boundary of the places they would live, so that they would search for God and perhaps fumble about for him and find him, though indeed he is not far from each one of us. For in him, to quote your poet, we move and breathe and have our being. Did you hear the way Paul started there? Instead of disagreeing up front, because, he could have, because he held a really fundamentally different worldview, because he actually was very distressed, the Bible tells us, by the Athenians' idol worship. Paul instead begins with his common ground. And I think that's a good note to take if we want to be Christians in the world. If we want to really follow Christ, then we should probably pay attention to that, because I think all too often the culture we call Christian misses this step. It takes stances against other people right up front. And that tends to count people out. The way that we market our beliefs, the opening statements we make, the first responses we have to events in person and online, all of it tends to shut people down instead of open conversation up. And I think probably it leads to a lot less change than we might hope for, and even less transformation if that's the Christ quality we're going for. Paul was really onto something here, I think. He famously does it in other places too. Here's how he explains his approach in his first letter to the Corinthians. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9. For though I am free with respect to all, I've made myself a slave to all, just so that I might gain more. To the Jews, I became just like a Jew in order to gain the thought of the Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so that I might gain those under the law. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law, for I'm not outside Christ's law. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, only so that I might become a true partner in it. That is not Paul saying, bait and switch, it's a good idea. That is not Paul saying, I will fake you out and then make you be like me. That's Paul saying, I really do see the other people, and I feel like I have something to share. So I'm going to start with what we have in common and what I think they need. The way I might modernize what he's doing is to say, if we form cultural bubbles around ourselves and stay safe inside our bubbles, We can never become like the Jews or those under the law or those outside the law. We can't even speak to those folks. We can't even talk to other people beyond our kind of Christians. And there are lots of other people God made. When we set out to stand firm in what we believe, sometimes we can really easily start to mentally defend what we believe at every turn and every pass. And that might be doing some incidental harm. That might be a thing Paul models differently and does differently in the world. Because when we're always playing defense, we can't play offense, and we can't reach beyond the bubble to show anybody unlike us anything else that they might be drawn to. So Paul begins with what might be driving the people of Athens' behavior. And then he looks for ways that their behavior could come from a positive intent. Paul says, I recognize you. You are the people who want to know things. You are very, very spiritual. In all this seeking and altar building you do, you'll consider any God. You've even built an altar to a God you can't know, thinking that maybe we should consider there's some supernatural force beyond us that we still want to respect and be attuned to. I like that, says Paul. And let me share how my life might fit in to what you're doing here. Let me share what I've lived and how I understand it and how I see that altar to the unknown God. I think something you're looking for is already right here. We all seek, we all fumble, but I think it's already here. What you're looking for isn't split into many personas. It's not a far-off presence that you need to tempt down to earth. It doesn't even depend on your attention, because the God I know isn't focused on our human shrines. The God I worship is actually the force that made this whole earth, everything in it, and you too. The God of the universe is available to be found when we seek. We will stumble a bit looking for this one true God, but really, all we have to do is stop and observe. It's not that we have to move this God to notice us, but come to realize we're already in this God who is moving in the world. We're saturated with this God through and through, utterly dependent on this God, in the words of your poet, for our ongoing life and movement and moment-to-moment being. That is such a clever way for Paul to make such a beautiful case about how human beings can understand a monotheistic God, a one and only God. Thousands of years later, it still stands as a classic piece of rhetoric, this speech at the Areopagus or on Mars Hill. And Paul built it the way he built it because he saw the people in front of him. He knew Athenians loved to play games with ideas, to think through mental puzzles. And he gave them this amazing thought exercise that would appeal to what they already found important. It was an exercise which incidentally impressed just enough of that judicial council that Paul left free. A few of them were persuaded enough to even join the Jesus way. There's a bit more to the speech at the Areopagus, but here's where I want to leave Paul and riff on just one of the big ideas he opens up. Paul says the unknown God of an Athens altar is actually knowable to himself and to anyone else. I think we can know God too. I think it's different for most every person. I think we all come to know what we conceive as God uniquely because of who we are uniquely. But I do think a few common human actions can make the unknowable knowable. And I want to offer my own thought exercise. I want to paint for you just a few sketchy kind of pictures of a few acts that have made the unknown knowable to me. just in recent weeks, these are literally the first things that came to my mind, and most of these examples involve you. I hope you'll recognize who you are, though I do not use your names. Recently, a number of us from the Way Sunday school class helped a friend pack up a house and clean it all out, and then set up a new household across town. That one friend happened to be a woman, and all the helpers happened to be women, and the society of us amazes me. One person reached out for help, and many, many hands responded. We came over on our lunch breaks, before our school pickups, in evening shifts, and in true womanly fashion, we way overachieved this one. We overplanned and overachieved. One of us made a beautiful party invitation for a cleaning night. It involved grazing boards and beverages, as well as rubber gloves and spray bottles. And the one moment that looked most like God to me was as I was part of this party of maybe, 8, 10 women, I walked down the hall holding my broom and popped my head in a bathroom and saw a woman cleaning another woman's toilet without any thought, with no hesitation. And it's not that that was a huge amount of work. It's not that there was an overwhelming mess. It's just the concept of the thing. It's such an ordinary, everyday bit of humility that you would do that for another person. And it was just so darn useful. To see us be that to one another, it moves me. The next moment from recent weeks unfolds at Escapology and Urban Air. They are an escape room business and a trampoline park on South Broadway. They sit right next to each other, and both these businesses are connected by a shared private rental room. So the youth had gone to Escapology. They were split into multiple groups. I was the adult for one group of youth. We happened to finish first. And we're then ushered into the shared space to wait on the rest of our group. So we're in the party room, shared by the escape room and the trampoline park. And while there, sitting just behind this glass wall that looks right into the trampoline park, a little small boy opened our door, walked on in, and sat down with us. And to be really honest, I was 0% concerned. I just wasn't even worried. I did go speak to him to be friendly, but I wasn't going to move him out of the room. He had sat down, next to one of us, and I thought, well, everybody wants to sit next to that one. That's fine. He looks fine. I'm sure that his parents can see him through the glass, and he will soon be recovered and reunited. So I pretty much signed off on the new kid. I was just going to serve him cake like the rest of them. But a teenage girl who happens to be a big sister saw something I didn't see, something pretty necessary and important. She didn't just ask, "Hi, who are you?" She went and said, "Are you okay? Are you lost? Do you want your mom and dad?" And then, very gently, she took him by the hand, led him slowly out of our room to an employee to be reunited with his family. To watch one of our own take care of a stranger like that moves me. Two more really short examples, and they're kind of personal. I asked my youngest child, just in passing in the car driving this week, out of all the women who are so good to you at church, like a lot of women are nice to you, right? Does anybody stand out? And he had an immediate answer. And to my surprise, it wasn't a teacher or a fellow mom. It was a young adult who shares her squishies with him. She shares her fidgets, and this is really big stuff. If you're not in the world of squishy, mochi fidgets, these are hugely popular. If you don't understand about neuroquirkiness, they're really important. These small toys that can help expel some energy, like something to do with your hands, helps regulate your body when you have to sit still. They are really, really a thing. They are not cheap, and all the trendy ones are hard to find. And this young adult buys fidgets, squishy fidgets for my son. To remember the care that other people take with my own children moves me. Finally, this is my first Mother's Day after my own mother's death. And yesterday, I got a text that caused my soul to just fill up. In fact, it just went so full, it leaked right out of the corners of my eyes. A neighbor, a friend, and a church member said to me, hey, just wanting to let you know, if I were in town, you would have soup at your doorstep right now, a candle to light, and a really big hug waiting, because I want you to know that someone else knows the day might be hard. It was so real, this text. And I know it was a real offer too. It meant something to me because I've already had food delivered to my door from her house to mine more than one time. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches, the things that has flowed down Foxcroft Road through my front door and into my kitchen. To be cared for like that moves me. All these acts of nurture move me to see God in the people doing the caring. It's only the smallest things I need. And I think the same might be true for you. I think it might also be true that the littlest things will help you find God in the world. I think it's these acts of kindness and compassion that make God known through human effort. And they're all acts of mothering, if you think about it. They all reflect the part of God who is our mother. My addendums to Paul's big idea on the Areopagus is an invitation to us all. Practice the small acts of care that make the unknown known to someone else. Do it all the time. Because I really think compassion is the most direct route to revealing God in the world. My hope for us is that we will both offer compassion and become compassion until every last person knows a God of love in whom we all collectively, undividedly move and breathe and have our being. So may it be. Amen.